On tonight's show, we'll talk about the heroes and zeros of the first half of the MLB season and second half strategy. Plus, we'll talk about the daily format as we discuss the all-new Tout Wars Champions League. Fred Zinkie of Yahoo Sports joins us next on Beat the Shift. And welcome to another episode of the Beat the Shift podcast. I am your host, Ariel Cohen, and with me, as always, is Ruvain Guy. What's going on, Ruvain?
Not much. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been a little while. I think we missed a week or two. But I lost that championship game. I know your son lost his championship game as well, the same day, same time. So sorry about that. But since then, it's been pretty good. I've been pitching this week. I threw 2 shutouts. A 6 strikeout game in which I struck out 6 different batters, and then a 1-hit shutout a couple of nights ago. How about you? What's going on?
Not much. I mean, you mentioned about my son. He did pitch in the Champions game. It was actually the second time he pitched all year because of an injury. And they looked a lot like the Mets and the Royals this past week, throwing the ball all over the place, and they just made too many errors to overcome.
The Mets lost 16-12. It was the first time ever in the Mets history that they scored at least 11 runs at home and still lost the game. So pretty bad.
And in that game, the first inning of that game, there were 3 errors on one play by the Royals that led to a Little League inside the park home run.
I saw that, and I was at the game last night. It was my first Met game of the whole year. I have not been going, but I went last night, and actually it was a pretty good victory. Scored 5 runs in the 8th inning. The go-ahead run was scored on a hit by pitch, so comically, but whatever gets the job done, you know?
That's true, and I'm actually going to go to my first game this coming Sunday against the Red Sox, so I'm finally getting out to Citi Field to watch the pitiful Mets.
Sounds good. All right, well, we've got a great show today. We want to welcome from Yahoo Sports, welcome back to the pod, Fred Zinkie. What's going on, Fred?
Hey, guys. Great to be here. I seem to get on for one of these episodes every summer when my full-time job dies down a little bit, so I've been really excited to do this with both of you, especially given that Ariel and I are in the Tout Wars Champions League together. So I'm sure that'll be a hot topic tonight. I think it's something we're both really enjoying.
Yeah, going to talk about that first, and always great to have you on, Fred. We are both in the Tout Wars Champions League. It is a head-to-head categories league in which it's 1 win a week. You win it, or you lose it, or you tie if you end up having the same categories. Daily lineups, daily waivers. Oh, man. Are you enjoying so far, Fred? I mean, for me, it's a lot of work because I usually don't play daily. I've got a full-time job as well. It's not just the setting lineups; it's also the pickups. Are you enjoying?
So I'm enjoying it so much more than I thought I would. And I'm like you. Like I have very little free time. I've got a full-time job, and then I've got my baseball writing and podcasting job, and then I've got 2 teenage sons. Who both play sports. Like I don't have a lot of free time, but this is my only daily moves league. And like, I find it's not hard to clear a minute or 2. You know what I mean? Like a couple minutes a day to just at least make sure your pitchers are in your lineup, maybe take a brief scan of the recent transactions in the waiver wire. I'm sure I've missed things at times over the course of the season, but I'm enjoying it a lot more. When they announced they were doing it, Nick Pollock announced it. I was like, the format, well, I really want to be in the league. So sure, the format's been like a huge draw for me. In fact, I'm hoping to stay in the league for next year as much to just play the format as anything else.
Yeah.
Has playing in this league helped you in other leagues because it's a daily league?
That's a great question. I would say not really because like I and I think a lot of us are pretty used to like the weekend and Sunday grind of like fab and then Sunday night like lineup setting and the routine of it. So I don't know if it's changed, if it's helped me in the other leagues. All the default Yahoo leagues are daily lineup leagues. So even though like I don't play in a lot of daily lineup leagues on Yahoo or anything, it's really related to my content. So I wasn't foreign to the idea, and I've played in them before, maybe not at this intensity, like a league that I really cared about that was a daily lineups league. So I think I maybe had a good amount of familiarity with some strategy involved with it before we started, even though it was a little bit of like I knew the strategies but hadn't had a lot of experience putting them into practice.
Yeah, so we don't do a lot of daily talk on this show, so this is really a great segment. But before we talk about it, just to give listeners the idea, this is the Champions League. It's to get into this, and this is the inaugural season, you had to win Tout Wars multiple times to get in. So this is the creme de la creme, the cream of the crop. And I have to say, Fred, so far, this is probably the best competition I've ever seen. I mean, I've been in Tout Wars leagues, and there's one or two guys at the bottom who, aren't that great or whatever.
Yeah, don't pay attention that much, for sure.
Yeah, there's nobody here that doesn't know what they're doing. This is absolutely the toughest league I've ever been in. I don't know how you feel.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it feels like you lock in so much on your matchups, and I feel like every week, like on Monday, I don't look ahead on the schedule or anything, but on Monday, I'll look and see like, oh, who am I going up against this week? And every week I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. Like, oh, that person, I know that person really knows their stuff. Like, yeah, there's no free lunch. Yeah, like you said, there's no, even in Tout Wars or in an NFBC league, like you'll have a few, maybe 2 or 4 teams near the bottom of your league where you're like, okay, this team's kind of lost. Like, I don't think this person like is really great strategically. In this league, like because everyone here has won multiple Tout Wars leagues, they're all really good with strategy, and I think we were all learning a little bit as we went at the beginning, but all really active and really thinking hard. And you'll see the moves, like there are moves in this league every day. Every day you'll see a few players added and dropped.
And I do think, though, unlike you, I do look at who I'm playing ahead of time because I found that my best strategy, and it was a learning process for me, but I picked up really quickly. I started the year, I think, 0-3, and I've won a lot since. Right now, I'm, I think, 7-4, and without playing, and by the way, I lost to you twice. I lost Fred to you. Without you, I'm actually much better.
You're doing great.
Yeah, and without the first 4 weeks of the season, I'm doing much better. But I've learned to adapt, and I've learned that it really does matter who is the next opponent, because I do some pickups for 1 week in preparation for the other, and the strategy really depends week to week for me. I don't know if you've done that.
So not as much. So I've been really I can totally see what you're saying, especially because we do have some teams in the league who have decided to go with no relievers or lots of relievers, or have a lot of base stealers or don't have a lot of base stealers. So there would be some of those as factors. Like you might be playing certain teams and think to yourself like, okay, like I don't need to roll any marginal starters this week because I don't think this other person's gonna throw a lot of innings, or vice versa. I've been really focused on, so I believe it's the top 6 that make the playoffs. I've been really focused on, I wouldn't say assuming I'm going to make the playoffs, but playing like I'm going to make the playoffs and focusing on trying to add players who I think have like a lot of long-term value and trying not to cut those players for like a short-term gain. I'll have to switch off that if I get to the point where I feel like I'm on the outside looking in as far as the playoffs go. But as long as I stay in the top 6, I've been, adding people like Gage Jump and then keeping them even when they have a couple rough starts, because there's potential there. So if I cut Gage Jump, it'll be because I've decided like there's not really potential there. But I've gone sometimes with empty hitting spots near the end of the week and just cross my fingers. Because I haven't been playing to win each week. But like I said, if it gets down to the last few weeks, I may have to change that theory.
Well, I did the opposite, and maybe that's because I started poorly, but I'm really
you had to, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But Ariel, you mentioned the fact that you actually look at the teams you're playing, and I think that's important in any head-to-head league, because in some of the leagues you'll have a slot for pitcher will be either starter or reliever, and you can have a pitcher who qualifies at both, and you have to see exactly what you mentioned. Are they going to have how many starting pitchers, how many relief pitchers? You have to know exactly what you're up against, because you can use that toward your strategy and how you play every week.
Let me give you an example of that. So last week, and I don't think you looked at what I did last week, Fred.
Nope.
1 or 2 teams did notice, but I won the week. I had 1 inning pitched. 1
Oh,
inning.
wow. Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Right. Now it mattered because I played against Mike Podhorzer. Mike Podhorzer decided to punt steals and saves. He did that at the draft.
Okay.
I picked up Garrett Whitlock because Aroldis Chapman pitched like 2 games in a row. So I figure, and my team is pretty short on saves as it is, so I figure let's pick up Garrett Whitlock. Hey, good chance. On the Monday, he throws 1 inning. He gave up like 1 hitter walk, and he got the save. So 2 strikeouts, and so he had a 0 ERA, 1 WHIP, and 1 save. I then saw that and I said, hold on a second. There's no innings minimum in this league. I automatically win ERA. I'm pretty much going to win WHIP unless, Podhorzer just has a crazy, ridiculously lucky thing. And I'm going to win saves because Podhorzer has no closers. And I said, wait a minute. I can just put a 0 for the rest of the week, bank on 3 points out of pitching out of 5. And who knows? It's a gamble. I can go and I saw he was set up very well for starters. Right? I'm not going to win on the volume. He has all the strikeouts. He has all the wins. So I can throw away my ERA to get what? To get nothing. I said I'm just going to bank my 3 points right there. And he doesn't have any steals either. So that's 4 points right there. I don't got to do much to win, and that's what I did. And I won 6-4. I got homers and RBIs, and that's pretty much it. But I only did that because I knew who I was playing. I knew how he was set up, and so on and so forth. There was another week where I had starters going Monday and Tuesday. They blew up, but I got a lot of volume, so I just kept streaming like crazy the whole week just to get strikeouts. And I even made like 3 pickups the last day, and I just nipped Derek Carty, and I won him by 2 strikeouts. So I think it really matters each week. And not just at the beginning of the week, you have to see where you are in the middle of the week. And you have to hold some pickups so that you can change strategy and do something the last day of the week.
Yeah, I've never reached my pickup maximum. I have experienced, like when you said, like figuring it out in the middle of the week, I think that's good advice. Like I have reached times where I'm like, I could really use another starter on Sunday for a few more strikeouts. And then I look at what's available. Like on Saturday, I'll look at what's available on Sunday. And I'm like, I really don't want to start any of these guys. Like, especially if I am still in a ratios battle in either one of the ratios categories. And I'm like, I know one of these guys could get me 4, 5, 6 more strikeouts, but I just don't think I can do it. So
Right.
If I started to look at that earlier in the week, that would be helpful. And last week I did pull even. I think I was facing Derek Carty last week. Last week I pulled even in, like, dead even in strikeouts near the end of the day, and then got 1 Zach Neto or 2 Zach Neto runs or something like that in the night game, which allowed me to tie the week instead.
So
of losing.
exciting,
So
by
it
the
does
way.
come down to all those. That's the fun part that I'm finding about it is like I like Roto. We all like Roto, like traditional Roto, sure, but like the monotony of the Roto season compared to this, like I find this like really exciting every week and every night to see that your stats matter. Like they really matter. I don't know. I'm finding it like really interesting. And then if you have a bad week, you just flush it. Like you're whatever. I lost last week. Like we're back to 0-0 with the new week. And so I'm really enjoying that. Like just the weekend, like sizing up the standings. And I probably would like to, and maybe I should at some point. I'm having trouble getting any hitters on my bench. Like I have a really full pitching roster. All of my bench spots are used by pitchers right now, all starting pitchers, and I don't want to cut any of them. And then sometimes I wonder if that's costing me a little bit of hitting stats late in the week.
Did you plan that when you went into the draft, planning, I'm going to mainly keep these hitters into the lineup, but I want to fill my bench with pitchers so I can just continue to stream?
So yes, but it's gone maybe a little further than that, where just in this league in particular, I feel like all of my best waiver finds have been starting pitchers. Like as I just flipped through my roster, like I grabbed Nick Martinez, Justin Robleski, Troy Melton, Gage Jump, who I mentioned earlier, Logan Henderson, who just came off the IL today. I found in this league in particular, I seem to find pitchers, and I haven't really found. I found Ryan O'Hearn on waivers and Brandon Marsh early in the year. I haven't found a lot of hitters, so. And I'm just, like I said, I look at those pitcher names and I'm like, I don't feel like I should cut them. Like I feel like they're all better than, Jump, I'm a little like not sure about. Like we'll see where the next couple starts go, but the rest of them, I'm like, I just feel like these guys are a cut above what's on the waiver wire, and once they're gone, they're gone. Like I probably won't get them back.
So my draft strategy was pretty much start as balanced as you can because you don't know how it's going to play out. And by the way, the all the players who did punt strategies, they're actually all in the bottom. Like Podhorzer and Brett Sayre, who did the punt strategies, they're all in the bottom. Not that they're bad players, but I just don't think that it worked for this. I came in as always, just draft value, right? It was by position. I made sure that I locked up a good second baseman because I saw there was a big drop to the next one, things like that. You got to get your hitting because, there's 3 outfielders. It's different than a 5 outfielder league, right? Things play a little bit differently, but pretty much there. It was my strategy, though, to come in and draft 2 catchers. Like, I don't think people are, like you said, you're not even holding hitters. I'm actually holding an extra catcher. I have Adley Rutschman and Sam Basayo. I picked them with my last 2 picks, and that was on purpose. I knew that if it would go there, it would be there, but those 2, I'm assured of a good catcher every day. And sometimes I get both of them if one is catching, one is DHing. So that was a strategy. I tried drafting relief pitchers, some next in line ones. My whole relief pitchers was very unlucky, though. I drafted Devin Williams and Jeff Hoffman. Those were the wrong ones. And any of the ones that I picked up for next in line, they didn't become the closer. So, that's just not the wrong strategy. It just didn't pan out.
But the league you're in now, you can make up for drafting poor closers because it's a streaming league and because you can just throw them out as soon as you want to, or you can hold on to as long as you want to. So that it's even if you miss on the closers in this type of league, it's not the end of the world.
No, but you'd have to be pretty quick on the waiver wire because you can't wait till the end of the week. You have to pick them up on a daily basis. And this is a very, very expert league, so they know what they're doing. There hasn't been many saves available on the waiver wire. I don't know if you noticed this, Fred.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I got Louis Varland earlier in the year, and that was but that was before, just with me living near Toronto and watching every Blue Jays game, I was I own Louis Varland in almost every team.
I had Hoffman, I was too late. So
right, but you were saying, in these leagues, the people are sharp. I was watching Hoffman go downhill. I was like, oh my God, I saw this movie last year, and it didn't end well. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to grab Varland and hold him for just a week and just see where things go with Hoffman. And then it paid off. But I have not been able to find, I have Raisel Iglesias. I've had him all season. I have not been able to get another save source. There were save sources earlier in the season and I didn't get them. And then lately I find there haven't really been great ones. And then what little there has been, like you said, with the quality of the owners and then the daily transactions, if you wanted Tyler Wells, you had to get on that early, right away, almost as soon as Ryan Helsley, as soon as Wells got a save kind of thing. You couldn't wait till Sunday, see him get 2 saves, measure your fab bid. That was the very next day. And then you have to, and then because the league's not deep, don't have a middle infield, don't have a corner infield, you're gonna have to cut someone significant for Tyler Wells, like a decent player, and then what if Tyler Wells is just nothing and you lost that player? And sometimes maybe that hesitation has cost me. I don't know, but you have to move quickly, and I like that. It's if you want Tyler Wells, sure, be the first guy to get him the night he gets that first save, or before he even gets the first save, and correctly predict maybe that he's going to get some saves and be rewarded for that.
And you definitely have to be aware of the line. There's a line of, I just can't cut this guy whatsoever. And then there's guys who you might be holding in traditional 12 or 15 team leagues, but you just can't in this format. And you got to just rotate because that's the nature of this. So you just have to be very clear what your line is. The other thing I'll notice about this league is, whereas balanced players are typically better to have, I find that having all or nothing players is helpful. So, for example, I have Nasim Nunez. I picked him up pretty early in the year. He's super helpful. Mm-hmm. Now, I wouldn't really play him in a standard 12-team league because he's so bad, but for the steals. But if you need to win that steals category, he's the guy to put in, right? And if you have so many steals that week, you just sit him, right? Because you're dealing with a specific category in the middle of the week, and you can pan out your week. You can decide whether you need him or you don't need him, and that makes him more valuable to deploy. So I find that the one category players actually are more useful in this format. I don't know if you agree with that.
No, I think that's. I think I could take better advantage of that if I dedicated a couple bench spots to hitters, which maybe I need to do as we get closer to the playoffs. And it'll probably happen through attrition anyways. Like just if I have, what do I have, 5 plus, like I've got 11 starting pitchers on my roster. Like how many of those 11 are still going to be healthy in a month, right? Like 1 or 2 are probably going to go down and just playing law of averages. And then maybe at that point I replace them with hitters and start streaming some hitter spots, and then have my team is weak in steals. It just hasn't really panned out for me. So I'm fine. I'm losing the steals category most weeks. Like I'm not punting, but Kyle Tucker has 6 steals. Zach Neto only has 11. I was expecting way more than that by now. Julio Rodriguez has 12. I was expecting more than that by now. So my team's losing steals most weeks. I haven't figured out exactly, like, am I just going to keep losing steals every week, like 8-4? Or am I going to try to shuffle my roster and punt steals? Or am I going to try to make a concerted effort and pick up like a Nunez would have been helpful at this point? I don't, but maybe I can find someone else at some point who can do something like that. So I'm going to have to figure that out at some point, because I find I'm not flexible. I'm mostly losing steals without punting it. And then I'm like grinding out the other categories and often doing well with them.
Yeah, the flexibility is, to me, the most important thing, is to be able to go in any direction. And if you see you're losing steals for the week, just cut everybody off in that regard, right? Or if you're losing wins in the week or strikeouts in the week, you can just cut it off right there, right? I think it's important to be flexible, to go in multiple directions. Ruvain, do you have any other tips for the format for our listeners to daily leagues?
Yeah, you mentioned it being very hard to find closers. You got to know your middle relief. You got to know what's going on, and especially now with the trade deadline coming up soon, you got to know these players who may be filling in, and you got to jump on these guys, like you said early. Have them on your bench. There's no harm in having, let's say, like you have Garrett Whitlock. There's a good chance if the Red Sox, I mean, they're hot right now, but our oldest Chapman, he can be traded. Garrett Whitlock would just slide right in. You have to look for those setup guys who are waiting in the wings of teams who are not really playing that well, that are going to be available, because now's the time to get them. 2-3 weeks before the trade deadline, now's the time to get them. Even if it takes up a roster spot, it may help you down the road.
Yeah, that's true in every league, I think, not just daily. But yes,
it's true. But in a daily league where there are a lot of professionals and they really know what they're doing, you have to jump in it super early, more than any other league.
Any other tips, Fred, for daily?
I was going to say, like, jumping off that comment, like, I would love to be in a position at the trade deadline where my record was such where, like, that would be really good. If my record was such where I felt like I could just kind of, like, just lose a week and maybe stash some guys ahead of the trade deadline, like you were talking about. Like, that would be a really good position. I don't know if I'll be in that position. Like, right now I wouldn't be. Like, right now I would be in the playoffs if they started today, but I don't have a lot of room to play with. Like Derek Van Riper, for example, is in first at 10-3-1. Like if I was in Derek's spot at the deadline, like maybe I just like play the week out, and if I lose, I lose, because you might win anyways. Like your players might just hit really well that week or pitch really well that week, and then maybe I make some moves that are intended at, like, whether it's picking up possible closers, whether it's picking up reserve hitters who might step into, who have potential but might step in when a certain hitter's traded off their team. So that'll be really interesting at the deadline, because there's also fab in this league. So like it's not only that you have to make a move every day, but you have to decide how much you want to bid. So like the day maybe Tyler Wells gets a save, you're like, okay, if you're like, okay, I want this guy, like, are you going to try to sneak him through? Like, you think no one else might notice? I'll sneak him in through $1 or $2 or none. Or am I paying up? Am I just going to throw $10-20 on this guy out of 100 and make sure I get him?
Yeah. I mean, it's tough because it's a daily basis. You don't know how well, but I always err on the side that there's at least one other expert that really knows what they're doing here. The last thing I'll say about this particular league, I had thought that there would be more trading. There has been very little trading.
That's a really good point. I made a couple trades. So I had Dylan Dingler and Shea Langoliers. My biggest mistake in this league, like you were talking about rostering 2 catchers, I had Dylan Dingler and Shea Langoliers. I love Dylan Dingler. Like, the expected stats for him this whole season have been so high, and he was playing well, but the expected stats were like off the charts. And I was like, oh, if he starts to catch up to those expected stats at some point, like look out. And he did. And I didn't like carrying two catchers because Langoliers plays basically every day. I probably foolishly a little bit was married to having Christian Yelich in my utility slot. He hasn't been as good as I had hoped this year. But I tried to trade Dingler 2 or 3 times to people, the person who had Sal Perez, and people who had one catcher and it wasn't a great catcher. And I tried and nobody wanted him. And then eventually I cut him. And there was I can't remember who it was, but there was a pitcher I wanted. So I cut him because I was like, oh, I'm hardly using him. And in the end, that was like a huge mistake. Like now I think he's even ahead of Shane Langoliers in full season value. And
I guess you might like the 2 catcher method that I
should have. I should have just thought long term and thought if I really believe in Dylan Dingler, and I did, just keep him. And like I'll figure it out. Like maybe he'll.
But it's hard. You've got Shea Langoliers. What are you going to do with that? All right. It's just your roster's not constructed for that.
It's true, but maybe I wait. Maybe I like if I really believe in him. Maybe I stick with it, and I'm like, okay, eventually he's going to be so good that I'm going to trade Langoliers, or I'm gonna. That probably should have been my angle. Since I believed in Dingler, I should have probably tried to trade. I think I would have had a good market for Langoliers. It is hard to trade a catcher in a 1-catcher league. Like there's maybe about 8 teams that are like, oh, I really like my catcher. Then there's maybe someone like you who's like, no, I'm rotating catchers and I'm good with that. So there weren't that many people, and I wasn't getting bites, and I didn't even think I was asking like a crazy amount for them. But anyways, and I kind of
and somebody wanted to trade for Sam Basayo on my team, and I'm like, you know what? No, I'm using him. What I liked about what I did with Rutschman and Basayo is I spent no draft capital. They were all at the bottom, so I didn't say I got to pick a catcher in the 7th round. I just said I'm going to get in my last 2 picks.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So, yeah, and you can follow it. Go to toutwars.com, everybody, and follow the league. Currently, Fred and I are in playoff positions. The way it works is the top 6 make the playoffs, and the bottom 6 are relegated, and they're out of the league next year. So it becomes really, really you got to be in the top 6 or you're thrown out. And then you got to win your league. You got to win your Tout Wars to get back into it. So it's.
I bet you some home leagues want to do that also.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk now, since we are almost at the All-Star break. Let's talk first half heroes. And let's throw out there, Fred, so who for you are your fantasy MVPs of the first half?
Okay, so are we talking, so my question for you, are we talking my fantasy MVP, like the people who have helped me the most, or the fantasy MVP of the first half? Like whether I have them on my team or not.
I would say but it would be good to hear who Fred Zinkie has is really helping him the most.
Well, I will say, so I'm going to separate. So we're going to do MVP and Cy Young. So I'm going to save I'm going to save the pitcher for Cy Young.
Yes.
Because just like in real baseball, the pitcher hardly ever wins the MVP. So I would say the MVP for teams in general this year. I know James Wood in most rating systems is the highest rated fantasy hitter, but when you look at what you had to give to get Jordan Walker, I would value him in a lot of ways as the MVP. If I'm going traditional MVP, the way Major League Baseball does it, then it's James Wood. The fascinating stat that I could not believe, and I saw it this morning on James Wood, he has 21 more runs scored than anyone else in baseball this year.
Wow.
Like 21 just past the midpoint of the season. Like I could not, I still can't believe that. Like 21, I guess it happens, but like if he keeps his pace up, he's gonna be 35 runs ahead of the next guy. Anyways, so he's the most valuable hitter so far, and I always say that I guess when we're picking the fantasy MVP, I wanted to shout out Jordan Walker because you got him off waivers and he's like a top 5 hitter. But when they pick the real baseball MVP, they don't take into account your salary. They're just like, you were the best player this year. They're not like you were the best bargain this year. So I'm going to say the MVP, and I have him on 0 teams because I was scared off by his second half and his strikeouts. But good for the Nats, and that's for me is James Wood. Who would you guys say?
Ruvain?
Well, I was going to say Jordan Walker because of where he went. His
fair.
ADP in NFBC this year and during draft season was 361. His min was 243. His max was 558. Can you imagine drafting at 558 and having him where he is right now? But my second MVP would be Otto Lopez, because Otto Lopez, look at his stats. I mean, 344, 9 homers, 43 RBIs, 17 stolen bases, 59 runs. During draft season, he was going for $12 or in the 15th round. I mean, he's a top 10 player already this year, and he's playing, and where he's eligible. It's you don't have to spend the money like other teams had to in for that specific position. So I think besides Jordan Walker, if you have Jordan Walker and Otto Lopez in your team, I don't see how you're not in first place.
Yeah, Jordan Walker was the number one pickup. The number two pickup it was Liam Hicks. Liam Hicks has been outstanding, and even in one catcher leagues, even in deeper leagues, even two catcher deep leagues, people didn't have Liam Hicks, and that was that. But yes, Jordan Walker. Otto Lopez is the number one guy who was definitely on almost every roster, and he's excelling. And he was an ATC darling. I have him on a couple of rosters. Brandon Marsh, obviously, big MVP. He was a waiver wire guy in a 12-team league. He was, a fifth outfielder in a 15-team league. Another ATC guy, and another ATC guy, Luis Garcia Jr. I mean, the last month that he's had has been absolutely outstanding. I mean, he's homering like every day of the week. I'll also mention Miguel Vargas. He's had an incredible season.
Yeah, Miguel Vargas, super consistent. And yeah, Luis Garcia. So I've always been a big Luis Garcia guy, sometimes to my detriment. But in one of my leagues this year, like I picked him up on waivers in May because he was off to such a slow start. Like Miguel Vargas is really interesting in that he's been super consistent this year. Luis Garcia was like unplayable for a few weeks, and then it's been like whatever in the last 30 days. I'm sure he's a top 2, top 3 fantasy.
I just picked him up in Tout Wars Champions, so
there
you
it is.
go.
And if you had Andy Pages as the second most valuable hitter on the Dodgers, you'd been out of your mind coming into the season. So he's another guy. He's one of the top outfielders. You also got him very late, and I think he's another ATC guy.
The thing about Marsh and Luis Garcia is I call them many paths to value players because they always get an amount of steals, always get an amount of homers. The batting average is fine. They play in decent lineups or hitting decent spots in the lineups. So they can either you can separate themselves in any category. Like if they're bad in one, they still could be good in the other. There's a very high floor, and if you have them as a high projected value versus the market, it's all chance of being disappointing because they can really go in any path. And if it all comes together, then you've got a superstar. So, those are the best guys that I love rostering. Cy Young, who's a fantasy Cy Young. Obviously, it's Jacob Mizorowski. There's no question about that, right?
Yeah. And Jacob Mizorowski would be my Cy Young in the sense. So he would be maybe my most rostered pitcher this year.
Good for you, man. Good for you, Fred.
I was really in on him. And I got lots of things wrong. Garrett Crochet is one of my most rostered pitchers, so and he'll be a topic for us in a couple of minutes. So it's not like I got everything right, but Jacob Mizorowski I did get right. So maybe not. Maybe I didn't see this coming, but what he is doing is just absolutely spectacular. And I have some teams where he's just carrying the pitching staff.
Ruben, who else is fantasy Cy Youngs for you?
Well, if you want to talk about Cam Schlittler, people saw what he did in the postseason last year, and then you see what he did now. But I think the two ones that are a little bit lower down, and if you would have got them, you got them probably one of them not as cheap, but Chase Burns and Max Meyer. Both of those guys are lower down, but they've been aces. So they've made that jump from being either a both of them prospects. Max Meyer finally getting past the injury stuff, and what he's doing right now, and both him and Chase Burns, they're both in the Cy Young conversation, even though they can't reach Jacob Mizorowski, but they're in the Cy Young conversation. And if you had either one of those guys, they would be maybe your third, fourth, or even fifth pitcher during draft day. And if they're turning into your aces, you're golden.
I'll also mention Foster Griffin, who's been outstanding on the waiver wire, and Louis Varland. I mean, he's the reliever site. He's the Rolaids relief award winner, whatever you want to call it, for fantasy. Just a $22 value, and you didn't have to pay anything to get him originally. Just the waiver wire pick. All right, before we do the fantasy busts of the year, let's go to the Injury Gurus trivia of the week.
So we're going to talk about the busts of the year for the first half of the fantasy season. And I'm going to be talking about players who are not injured, because injured players, yes, they're considered busts, but for me, a bust is more of a player who's playing every day and just not living up to his capability. So what I'm going to do is we're going to play a little game today. I'm going to give you the stats of two different players, and you have to tell me who would you draft, player A or player B. I'm going to do this twice because I have two busts. First player, player A. Do you want this player? He's batting .276, 6 homers, 23 RBIs, and 6 stolen bases. And player B is batting 248, 7 homers, 6 stolen bases, 45 RBIs. Who would you
One of
rather
those is
have?
one of those is Tatis, I'm assuming.
No, Tatis
Oh,
has
no,
more
he has
stolen
more
bases.
steals. He has more steals. Yeah.
So which player would you want? Would you want player A or would you want player B? Fred, what do you think?
So I was hearing them quickly, but I think I wanted player B.
Okay, so player A was drafted and with an average ADP of 451, and that's AJ Ewing.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Player B was drafted at an ADP of 14, and that was Kyle Tucker.
Yeah. I
So you
wondered
can,
if one of the guys was Kyle Tucker.
yeah, so that's the Kyle Tucker one. And for the second bust, do you want player A batting 263, 4 homers, 6 stolen bases, 35 RBIs, or player B batting 291, 5 homers, 5 stolen bases, and 35 RBIs? So I try to get stats that are pretty close together. So do you want player A or player B?
Maybe take the batting average with player B.
Okay. So player B, you just picked Sam Antonacci, batting 291, 5 homers, 5 stolen bases. His ADP was 465. Player B is Vlad Jr., Vlad Guerrero, 263, 4 homers, 6 stolen bases. So I think for me, Vlad and Kyle Tucker, based on where they were drafted, you drafted them for first or near first round value, and you're getting pick 450 or 460 value. So for me, I think those guys are the busts for the year, for the first half of the year. Fred, who do you have?
So I was gonna name. So you're right. I thought the same thing. Do we take injured players or players who missed? Like Garrett Crochet stands out to me just as a first round pick who's barely played this year. But the one I'm going to throw out along the same lines as Vlad and Kyle Tucker is Cal Raleigh. And if you took, especially in a 2-catcher league, if you took Cal Raleigh in a 2-catcher league and he's batting 170, and you've, other than the time he was in the on the IL, like, which wasn't most of the season, like, you've had that 170. He's got 9 homers, but even 9 homers isn't even very good for a catcher. Like, it's okay, it's something, but Cal Raleigh in a 2-catcher league, like, you can't replace him. Like, I talked with Jeff Erickson on the RotoWire podcast this week about how in some leagues would you pivot off Vladdy. Like, first base is so deep this year. Like, in some more shallow leagues, like our Tout Wars league that doesn't have a corner infield spot, like, would it be time to actually just bench Vladdy and just use? There's so many good first basemen this year, but Cal Raleigh, like, I don't know, it's so hard to move off him at catcher, and you're just stuck taking these horrible stats.
Cal Raleigh was a mistake to draft where he was. I mean, one of the things we pushed very much preseason was that you look at the catchers from the previous 4 years on who had the most value gained during the year. And it was always 7th round, 10th round guys. Nobody before the 4th round would ever earn that value and contain so much portfolio risk because, if your catcher busts, you now have to get somebody from the waiver wire who's well below replacement. So to draft Cal Raleigh in the early 2nd round was an absolute don't do that. I mean, we just called it out. So to me, it's on you if you are a fantasy player and you picked Cal Raleigh. That's not, it's not like you picked Aaron Judge and he got hurt. That's not a mistake, According to if you take values minus ADP, the worst values are Garrett Crochet, number 1, Ryan Pepio. He was drafted as a $13 player, and he's been, negative 25. Zero negative. Ronald Acuna because of injury. Francisco Lindor because of injury. Judge, although Judge has returned a $14 value despite the injury, but it's injury. Roman Anthony. And then we get a couple of Rockies pitchers, which I can't count. And Freddie Peralta comes up. What a terrible fantasy bust. Freddie Peralta just drafted as a $22 ADP. And he's returned a negative value. He was my first throwout. So in Tout Wars, you get to, if you won the league last year, you get the first throwout. And I threw him out knowing that he was well overvalued, and somebody just gobbled him up for $20-something, and I stayed far away. So Freddie Peralta is maybe the starting pitcher without the injury that's been the biggest bust, with the opposite of Cy Young or whatever you want to call it.
I think you raised a good point, though, that the guy who sits in your lineup, like Freddie Peralta killing your ratios, like Cal Raleigh killing your batting average, like they are in some ways often the bigger bust. Like losing Garrett Crochet in a couple of my teams has really hurt me. But at least he was just gone, and I could be like, okay, I need pitchers because he's out. I can't count on him.
You're not accumulating the value. Like
right.
You're taking zeros. You're not accumulating negative value. It's not like you're playing Michael Lorenzen, right? You're playing nobody. But you're expecting something from Peralta, and he's giving you not just negative value. He's giving you very negative value. He's negative $9 in a 15-team league format. And is anybody sitting him right now? I don't think so.
You're right. Framber Valdez has been one for me, in the same vein. Like, I don't want to sit him because I took him in like round 6, but he hasn't pitched well, and he keeps sitting in my lineup. And I've soaked up now a 138 WHIP and a 4.29 ERA to get 4 wins. Like, he's
pitching well tonight, by the way.
Good,
yeah,
thank you.
Yes, yeah, and I sat him in a couple leagues also.
Well, I keep leaving him in my lineup because again, he was like a 6th-round pick, and if you're in 15-team leagues, like it's hard to have enough. Like, every week I'll be like, am I benching this guy for like Gage Jump, for Andre Palante, for Adrian Morhone, and put a middle reliever in for the week? Like, that's where you're at in a 15-team league, and I'm always like, no, I'll start Framber Valdez. But like, looking at the stats this year, like he's hurt me for sure.
Well, when do you get to the point of stop looking at the name and start looking at the numbers? I mean, that's what it comes down to. Just ignore the name. I know you paid draft capital. I have Framber Valdez in one league, and I sat him this week. And because if you look at his last couple of starts, how can you possibly expect that? But also, you're not going to sit Christopher Sanchez, who blew up your ERA and whip this week also. So it's these pitchers. They're very finicky. It's getting warmer outside, so the ball's flying out a lot more. I think runs are up. It has to be because there's so many. I mean, the Royals are scoring 16 runs a night. It's crazy. So I mean, the pitchers. It's so hard to sit a player that you drafted that high. But if they've had already a full half a season like Freddie Peralta, I mean. He's playing on a bad team. His ERA and WHIP are killing you. They're probably going to trade him and probably get pennies on a dollar for him. Why would you even bother playing him at this point?
So let's get into a bit of second half strategy. We could talk about what to do, but Fred, I'll throw it to you. What do you look for at the All-Star break here to determine if some first half riser that's outperformed will continue to soar, and what do you determine if players like Vladdy, the first half bust, will just continue to sink?
Yeah, I know it's like, I know this is like, I don't know, maybe a boring answer, but like, I'm going to look at the advanced stats, right? So I'm going to look for reasons why someone soared or reasons why someone has stunk so far. So what's going, like if I had Vladdy, like what's going on with Vladdy? What's the exit velocity like? What's the barrel rate like? What's the launch angle like? Strikeout rate, etc. And just put it all together. We know there's players nursing injuries, like Vladdy's mentioned the back now a couple times recently, and he's not going to the All-Star game because of it. So there's that factor too. Like, so now I've got Vladdy, like if I don't have any Vladdy, he was on my do not draft list, but at his ADP. But if I went through all the advanced stats and I was like, okay, this does not look good, and now I know about the back that's been bothering him, I maybe put one and one together there and come up with it's time for me to just to downgrade my expectations of Vladdy. Now, what I do about those downgraded expectations, that depends on the league. Like, is there trading in the league? How deep is the league? What are my options? But that's for any player. I think that's the same with like a Luis Garcia. I'm gonna look at like obviously he's not the player that he has been in the last month. Like Aaron Judge is barely the player that Luis Garcia has been in the last month. But I'm going to look at like what's changed with Luis Garcia. Has something changed, or is he just, is just everything kind of flying into the yard for him?
I'll say something though in response to like Vladdy, and it's more about use. Vladdy obviously has the pedigree, and obviously there's going to be injury. We don't know when he's going to suddenly get healthy. But whether you want to keep him on your roster or not, to me, depends on your standing in the league. If you're in last place, there's no way that you're going to rise unless Vladdy snaps back together. You can't get rid of him. You just have to hope, leave him in your lineup, leave him in your roster, hope he snaps back. But if you're in first place, you need expected value. You need expected stats right now. You need something, some production. That's the kind of player I would trade, because even if you have to take a perceptive value, decrease, Luis Garcia Jr., obviously before the season, no one would rightfully draft him ahead of him. But you might want to go for that because Luis Garcia is going to get some kind of expected stats, and he'll move the bar even more if you're in first place. You just need that production. So to me, what you do really depends on where you are in the standing. Do you agree with that, Fred?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good point. Now, sometimes it's hard to be at the top of the standings with some Vladdies on your roster, but even teams, we all know this, even teams that are in first place have busts. Like I said, I have a team in first place with Garrett Crochet. Like just because you're in first place or second place in the league doesn't mean that you don't have a Garrett Crochet, a Cal Rowley, a Vladdy. Like a lot of those teams do have one or two of those players. They've just hit on some Miguel Vargas types too. So you're right. It is part of the decision making for sure.
Yeah, I would even look at the last month because we're about 3 months into the season now. So if you look at the last month and these players haven't shown any sign of turning it around, you're not going to get much trade value. If you like for Vlad, you drafted him where you drafted him, you're going to live and die with him. Same with the starting pitchers. You drafted Garrett Crochet. If you're doing great without him, that's great. But you have to, unfortunately, you have to live and die, and that was your choice when you made those initial picks. I think the fact that you have to look at walk rate the last month or so, look at their K rate the last month or so, look at how lucky or unlucky they are. See if their playing time is being affected by this. Are they playing the field more? Like in Vlad's situation, is he playing more for space? Is he DHing? Are they trying to give him mental breaks to help him out? There are certain things you have to look about their playing time to really decide whether or not you want to keep a player or whether or not you have to bench them.
All right, here's an interesting question for you, Fred. If you're playing in a season-long roto, are there any particular categories that if you have a lead, you should be willing to protect more than other categories?
It's a good question, but I don't think so. Like I guess you can protect your ratios, but it just depends where. It's pretty early. Like as far as teams that are chasing you in the wins category is always so tight. The steals category may or may not be tight for you, depends on your league and your standing, but I find the wins category is so tight, and if I'm going to get conservative on protecting my ratios, like it may cost me some wins. And I find almost every time you get a win, you gain some points. Like it's usually that close in the standings that there's always either a team tied with you in wins at this point in the season, or someone who's one win ahead or one win behind. So that's the one. I'm trying not to protect my ratios at the expense of potentially falling down the wins category.
All right, so I'll ask you a different way. Is there any category that you can make a nice late second half season run that you've done it before where, you were down in this category, but you can really push this one and gain in one, and that's something that you should try to gain in?
Right. I guess that depends to me maybe a little bit on league size. Like you were saying, the move you made in our Tout League with Nasim Nunez. If you're in more of a shallow league, there's probably a lot more on waivers. If you go in, if you're in a 15-team NFBC style league and you go look up what's on the waiver wire, you're going to find a home run leader with 8, you know what I mean? And a steals leader with 15, but it's Esteury Ruiz or David Hamilton or something like that. So someone who you probably overall maybe don't want to put in your lineup. Like steals, you could go for a run, if you, no pun intended. If you really wanted to, it's just probably maybe a little early for that, and it's going to come at the expense of some other things. Now, if you're in a more shallow league, then there's some real players on waivers who you can maybe add and try to load up in a category. I find that it's hard in a 15-team league to necessarily predict what you're going to find. Like maybe you find Louis Varland, or maybe you find Max Meyer, or I in a couple leagues I recently picked up Jake Bennett, who's been pitching really well. But you might find Nasim Nunez, or you might find a slugger. It's like you just keep scouring the wire, but it's hard to predict what you're going to find.
So Ruvain, what about punting categories? At the halfway mark, is it too early to just say, hey, it's not working here, I'm punting a category? And the second part to that question, are saves and stolen bases really the typical ones that you would?
Yes and yes, especially for saves because yes, you can get closers later on, maybe towards the trade deadline, and you get more closers may be available. But saves, like you mentioned, if you have two closers that bombed, if you had the Blue Jays closer, you had the Mets closer, and they're both not doing that great, and they're bombing, and you don't have that many saves. I mean, you're probably so far behind at this point that if you do try to pick up a closer. You do spend fab on trying to get a closer. How many points are you going to actually gain if you do that? If you're so far behind, if you're like 5 6 points away from gaining like 3 or 4 points, then that's fine. But if you're like 10 saves away from gaining 2 or 3 points, it's not worth it to spend your money on fab and on saves anymore, and you can just punt it. As for stolen bases, though, stolen bases you could probably still get, but you mentioned about protecting. I think at this point you want to protect the category of runs runs, home runs, and RBIs because you are going to use those stolen base guys later in the year. The stolen base guys will come later in the year, but at this point you shouldn't be putting in your stolen base guys now instead of your power hitters because you don't know if those power hitters get hurt. And if you're getting the power, you got to stockpile those home runs because you're going to get the stolen base guys in the waiver wire, but you're not going to get the home run guys on the waiver wire later on.
Yeah, and stolen bases, you always get some September call-up that can really run and fly, and especially in a shallow league, you can run with that. The power, by the way, is important now because there are more home runs in July and August as the summer heats up. So there's actually a lot more to gain in it, so I would agree that you want to protect it. The one thing I'll also say is I find that batting average fluctuates a lot more than people think. I know a lot of people who say, you can't really predict batting average. It's so fluctuates, so who cares? Just, focus on the counting stats. But you could actually make a deserted run on batting average. I mean, there are guys like Luis Arias who have shown that batting average is a skill. I'm always more cognizant about my batting average than most, and my fantasy teams almost always lead batting average more than anything else. So to me, it's very important to lock it up. I don't know if you feel the same way, Fred.
The thing about batting average, and the same with ERA and WHIP, like they're the only categories where the teams who are ahead of you could actually come back to you. So like if you're 10 homers behind a team, like they're not coming back to you. Their homer total is not going down. You have to make up the 10 homers as they keep accumulating homers. Someone can be ahead of you in batting average. Maybe you're batting 253 and they're batting 256. And you're like, okay, I got to make up 3 points. You may not have to make up 3 points. You may have to make up 2. Like they may drop down to 254.5. You may come up to 255, and all of a sudden you're ahead of them. So that's the one thing where you can see maybe more movement in the 3 ratio categories because teams can come back to you.
Or go down, because
right.
me and you, I'm in the league with Aria right now in GDD. I was in second place 2.5 weeks ago. I am currently in ninth place now because in the last 2 weeks, my ERA last week was 5.24 with a WHIP of 1.25, and this week my ERA is 8 with 1.5, and that's with having decent pitchers to begin with. I was in the middle of the pack, but I fell so far down. Those areas are they fluctuate so much, and the fact that more players are going to use random starters later in the year. Don't give up. It'll take some time, but you can get your ERA and WHIP back to where it was. You just got to give it some time and let the other teams come back to you.
And everybody's ERA generally goes higher, meaning a worse ERA as the summer goes on, as hitting goes more. Last strategy question for the second half is, we're getting to the time. I mentioned earlier that we're almost to the trade deadline, and there's always going to be some new closers anointed because of trades. Fred, do you find yourself doing a lot of darts where you say, you know what? I'm going to take a couple of second-in-line guys. They're free now. I mean, free. The only thing is the opportunity cost if you got to drop somebody now. But try somebody now. Or are you a guy who says, you know what? Just trade for trade for a top closer, trade with somebody who has a lot of saves, and go for it that way. Obviously, you're giving up a player, but you can get an assured better closer that way. Which is your strategy?
Okay, so I think you have to base this year by year on what you think the trade market will be in actual Major League Baseball with closers. And some years it's really obvious that there's maybe 3-4 teams out there where you're like, okay, that team's going to be sellers. They've got a closer, or that they're going to probably deal, whether he gets dealt to be a closer or not. But it's going to open up their safe situation. This year, looks really bad for that. So this is a year that I would go the trade route. So for example, if we look, like we mentioned, the Aroldis Chapman situation, there's not a lot else. Like Ryan Helsley's hurt. He's not going anywhere. You look at teams that are near the bottom of the league, like the Royals don't really have a closer. The Angels, the Athletics, like they're not trading away closers with someone sitting in the wings. Like the Mets could trade Devin Williams. I don't think someone's trading for Devin Williams. Like I don't think that's happening with his contract. I think the Mets are going to have to keep him and hope that, like, his underlying numbers are a lot better than his actual numbers. So they're going to have to hope that eventually the underlying numbers kind of come through. Like would the Reds trade Emilio Pagan, and then would we find a closer in Cincinnati? Well, Emilio Pagan was already out for several weeks, and we didn't really find a closer in Cincinnati. Like the Giants don't really have a closer. The Rockies don't really have a closer. So it's hard for me to find, other than the Red Sox, if they were to trade Aroldis Chapman, it's hard for me to find a lot of other teams that look like sellers that have a definite closer, and then therefore we could try to look for a setup man.
So the Mets are analytically in first place. I like that. But I don't think it's just this year. I think it's last year. I think it's going to be next year if the God willing there's baseball, just because there's an extra wild card and nobody is really out of it. Maybe you could say the Rockies are out of it, but no one wants a Rockies closer, and so everyone's going to be in it. But that's one reason why also they pushed off the deadline a little bit later, just because even those couple of days, these teams can start making. I think I heard it on one sports talk show that they said that each team probably has in their head what date or how many games into the season they want to be and how far out they want to be in order for them to be able to trade for or to trade away. And we don't know what the teams are going to do because it's just so bunched up. It's this year, it's last year, and I don't think it's going to change.
Any other second half strategies that we're missing right now?
No, not off the top of my head. I think the closer one. Is a really interesting one, just because it's a category where you can move a lot. And maybe your strategy then should be, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to trade a starting pitcher for a closer. And even if I quote lose a little bit on the deal, because I think I can mine starting. Maybe I think I can find starting pitchers. There's always just a bit of a wave of starting pitchers. Like I said, like we just had Jake Bennett from the Red Sox, like in the last couple of weeks, and we've seen Ian Seymour get picked up in some leagues recently, and we can keep going. Like there's just always a little trickle of starting pitching, so maybe that's your second half strategy. One thing I'll say, and I haven't done this much the last few years, but you can. It's too early right now, so it wouldn't be a second half strategy for me, but maybe mid-August. By then, there is a small enough amount of time that you can look at strength of schedule for teams and what their remaining strength of schedule is. And you can look and maybe find a team that just has like either a lot of games left because they've had some rainouts and things like that, and maybe they have 4 or 5 more games left than most teams. Or you can find teams that have like a really easy schedule left. Like, for example, maybe there's someone that's got a lot of Giants and a lot of Rockies. They're in the same division, got them on their late season schedule. And if the Tigers do give up, maybe there's someone who's got a lot of Tigers and Royals left on their the A's and the Athletics, and the Angels. So looking at late season schedules can sometimes maybe be like a bit of a tiebreaker when you're on the trade market looking at maybe a starting pitcher and you think he could have a lot of easy matchups down the stretch, or a closer if you think his team could do really well.
All right, so we have not done this segment in a while because we've been doing sort of Monday night shows, but we're back for the summer to our usual spot, and it's a little bit of time for a waiver wire. Now, it's coming up to the All-Star break, so not an immediate impact, but Fred, who are a couple of players that you might want to look at for this week's waiver wire?
Okay, so I actually every Friday have a Yahoo waiver wire article come out, so I'm going to name a couple picks. Actually, I named 3, and they're kind of different depending on league size. But I tried to I tried to mix it up. So the shallow league, Cole Carrig is playing so well. In Yahoo, he's still only 34% rostered. He's playing so well for the Rockies, and he's not even stealing bases. But it's maybe you don't steal as many bases when you're launching a lot of extra base hits like he has been. When the extra base hits come down, I think the steals will come back up because he hit 30 steals in 57 games in AAA this year. So I think Cole Carrig and the Rockies, one of the most interesting stats to me this year is after, I think it was 7 years in a row, maybe 8, of being in the bottom 3 in road runs scored, The Rockies are middle of the pack this year in road runs scored. I'm not counting the COVID season. So if you just count 162 game seasons, the Rockies, this is the first time since I think it was 2018 or 2017 that the Rockies have been like a decent road offense. And they have been so far this year, and we're pretty far into the season. So Cole Carrigg's my shallow league guy. My deep league guy, I want to mention Garrett Mitchell. His quality of contact is like way up this season. So like way better average exit velocity, way better barrel rate. Been better against lefties. I'm not saying he'll always play against lefties, but he's been better against lefties to the point where he's been playable for the Brewers against lefties. I don't think Garrett Mitchell's like going to be a stud, but he's another guy like you already mentioned the players who just contribute across the board. So and I love those players too, because like you said, like they could have a month where they get like 1 homer and 4 steals. And then the next month, maybe they get 4 homers and 1 steal. And just it all averages out over the course of the season. Garrett Mitchell's like a poor man's version in that scenario. So those are 2 hitters that I want to mention. On the pitching side, I think people in shallow leagues need to scour their waiver wire for Logan Henderson. Because if he was dropped in some shallow leagues, because he has been out for a while. I absolutely love Logan Henderson. I try to love all Brewers pitchers, which is part of my Jacob Mizorowski love. But I've loved Logan Henderson going back to the middle of last season.
All right, Ruvain, how about you? Who are some players that you'd want to pick up this week?
Okay, well, because it's the All-Star Week coming up, I'm going to do a little homage to Chris Berman, who always did the Home Run Derby. And I have 4 guys from the waiver wire to look at. The first one is Gavin Clean Sheets. He's owned in 36% of CBS leagues. He's got 14 homers, 39 RBIs, 4 stolen bases. He's eligible at first and outfield. So if you do have a guy like Vlad Jr. who's not playing well, you want to plug Gavin Clean Sheets in, then you could do that. Next thing I'm going to talk about is Jake Mangum PI, who's got 4 stolen bases over the last 2 weeks while batting .306. He also got 2 homers, and he's got 17 stolen bases on the year so far. If you need a stolen base guy, he's only owned in 19% of CBS leagues. So there's a guy you can pick up. Number 3 guy is a guy from the bullpen, Luke Dreamweaver, and Chris Berman actually did that for, I think, Jared Weaver before. He's been amazing. He's has 2 wins, 1 save, 42 strikeouts in 38 innings, 1.9 ERA, .84 whip, and has not allowed an earned run since April 30th, spanning 24 outings. If you need a guy to help your ERA and whip, he's the guy to do that. And the 4th guy on my list is Little Nicky Lopez of Texas. He's eligible second, short, third. He's batting .389 over the last 2 weeks. He's really maybe an empty batting average guy, but he's also got 5 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, but he's a good fill-in, and he's available in most leagues, so he's only owned in 2% of CBS leagues.
All right, I'll give mine. Number 1 was Garrett Mitchell for me as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, since June 1st, batting .340 with 5 homers, 16% barrel rate this year. The only knock to him is he's got a 33% strikeout rate, but he's mashing the ball, 93 average exit velocity. I'll throw in Kyle Karros, who's also mashing the ball, and he's the everyday third base now. He's batting like in the 2-hole. What about Cody Clemens? Since June 1st, 10 homers. That's as many homers as Shohei Ohtani and Kyle Schwarber have hit in that span. He's been absolutely mashing, playing every day. He's eligible so many places. He got 16 homers on the year, 6 stolen bases. Fantastic. By the way, can you name all the players who have hit more than 10 homers since June 1st? There are 6 players. Can anybody name them?
More than 10 homers. Okay, so Luis Garcia is going to be one.
Number 1 with 15. Yep.
Hunter Goodman.
2 with 14.
Juan Soto.
Nope.
Really? He has 4. I think he has 4 home runs in July already.
Oh, how about PCA?
PCA. He's tied for 2 with 14. There's 3 more left.
Oh, how about Junior Caminero? He had that week where he just homered every day.
You have to.
Caminero. Yeah, he's red hot. And then there's Jackson Churio, who's since the injury has come on strong, and somebody who a lot of people have written off, Rafael Devers, 11 homers. Right. I mean, you can't. If you did write him off, shame on you here. I think we had him as like I don't know if I'd take him the last episode, but he's been fantastic. I've kept him in all my leagues. And just for people coming, Ryan Jeffers is coming back if you need a pitcher in a 2-catcher league. A couple of pitchers to mention: Reynaldo Lopez. I think he's good to even pitch in a 12-team mixed right now. Got a 3.18 ERA in the last month, 1.33 ERA, .93 WHIP, 24% strikeout rate. He was really good the other year. Reynaldo Lopez, don't sleep on him. Dean Kramer is back. He's got a 1 WHIP this year, and that could continue, so watch out. I like Michael McGreevy. Not a lot of strikeouts. His expected stats are crappy. He's got some luck, but he's serviceable. And I like Luis Castillo. He was an ATC darling. Obviously, not a win. He's a bust, obviously. But since June 1st, 3.29 ERA, 1.10 WHIP. So that's definitely playable. And Bailey Ober is back. I think he's starting today. So another guy to watch out for. Anybody else, Fred or Ruvain?
Yeah, I actually got 3 more pitchers because we're combining the pitcher preview. Everything
Pitcher
else.
preview.
Yes, Fred, you mentioned about the Brewers pitchers. What about Shane? Don't mess with the Strohan. He's pitching really well since he became a starter. Since June 1st, he's posted a 3.22 ERA, 1.35 with 33 strikeouts over 36 innings. He's only owned in 49% of CBS leagues. If he's not owned, he's a guy you got to pick up. Grant Sherlock Holmes from Atlanta. In his last 2 starts, he's pitched very well. He's only, it's only 10 innings, but since he's gone back in the rotation, he's done good things. He's got only 8 hits over the last 10 innings. He's a guy to look for, especially in the Braves rotation. And another guy, Colin Ray of Light, from the Cubs. He is, after going winless in his 5 June starts, he's won his last 2 starts already in July, and in his last 4 starts, he's gone 20 2/3 innings, 6 runs, and 14 strikeouts, lowering his ERA from 5.35 to 4.75. So that's a guy to watch out for. Even though his ERA is high, he's trending in the right direction.
All right. Anybody else, Fred?
No, actually, it's interesting that I stole your Garrett Mitchell because if I was going to do another hitter, it was going to be Cody Clemens. So I think that was really good. Really good pick. He's in my article tomorrow.
Well, that's why we're fighting over the same people every day.
It's true.
Tout Wars. So there you go. All right, let's go to the finally the injury update with Ruvain. What say you?
Well, you mentioned Ryan Jeffers. Ryan Jeffers is still on his rehab assignment. He said he may need 3 or 4 more days until he comes back. He's coming back from a fractured left hamate bone. He's probably going to come back the beginning of right after the All-Star break. Vinny Pasquantino also started a rehab assignment. He went 2 for 3 in his first start. I think it was last Tuesday. He's also coming back from a broken hamate bone, which seems to be a trend this year. We'll see how much time and how the Royals will play him first when he comes back, and what they're going to do with Jack Caglione, because he's been playing first base recently. Luis Robert, he's a Met, but he's a guy you may get. He's on the waiver wire because nobody wants him because he hasn't been doing anything. He was cleared for a rehab assignment this week. He could be back toward the the first or second week after the All-Star break. And a couple more pitchers to know about. AJ Smith-Shawver of the Braves. He had a great rehab start. He's looking great for his recovery from Tommy John surgery from June of 2025. He's looked good so far in 2 starts. He could be back sometime right after the All-Star break, so he may take another pitching spot there. They may go with a 6-man rotation just because they're getting very deep there unless someone gets hurt. And I'm going to mention Clay Holmes. He's a forgotten guy on the Mets on the Mets bench, on the Mets IL. He's making his rehab start hopefully toward the end of July. If he does that, he could be a trade target. He could be traded to a contender because before he got hurt, he was posting a 2.39 ERA, a 1.1 WHIP, and having 45 strikeouts in 52 innings. He's actually a guy, if he comes back and has 1 or 2 good starts before the or 1 start even before the trade deadline, he's a guy who might get traded. He may be available in a lot of leagues just because he's been out for so long.
All right, well, that's the end of our show. I want to thank Fred Zinkie for coming on. Fred is a legend in the industry and just a really smart guy and just does great work. Well, why don't you just tell everybody where we can read your stuff and where we can listen to you as well?
Yeah, I try to make sure I tweet out it links to anything that I cover. So that's on Twitter at Fred Zinkie MLB. But I get 4 articles on Yahoo every week, and Tuesday, usually somewhere around 4 or 5 in the afternoon, record, which can be followed live on YouTube or picked up afterwards anywhere you get your podcast on the RotoWire podcast with Jeff Erickson.
All right, Ruvain, how about you?
You can follow me on Twitter X at MLB Injury Guru, where I tweet out injury updates as they come and the next man up.
And I'm Ariel Cohen. You can see my stuff on Fangraphs at Rotoballer. I'm on Twitter X at ATCNY, and of course right here on the Beat the Shift podcast. All right, once again, thank you so much for Fred Zinkie of Yahoo Sports for coming on the show, and from all of us here at Beat the Shift. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Beat the Shift podcast presented by Fangraphs. Follow us on Twitter at beat_shift_pod.